Welcome to Let's Relieve Regret, the uplifting podcast where we talk about how to relieve what you're worrying about.
It can feel so good to finally let go. Let go of past hurts, let go of old grudges, let go of self-doubt, self-shame.
The thing is, we aren't always given the tools to let go. We're told to get over it, or it's time to move on. But how do we do that?
We will share our stories, tools, and strategies of how we let go to help you let go.
Let's begin. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let's Relieve Regret. My name is Victoria Murabercia, and we are joined by my fabulous co-host,
Shadoe Ball.
Welcome to you. Welcome to everyone out there listening in the world. It's just Shadoe and I today. We haven't done an episode just us in a while, so here we are.
I got that song in my head earlier today where it was like, just the two of us sharing regrets about our lives, just the two of us, Victoria and I.
Maybe that should be our new jingle.
Jingle. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we've ever had a jingle.
Let us know how you would feel if that was the opening of the podcast. Send us a message. How are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10?
The fact that I'm breaking out into song should let you know that I'm already at like a pretty high level. I think I'm at a 9 out of 10 today. Yeah.
Yay. I'm going to give myself, I'm going to go 8.5.
Oh, nice.
8.5. I had a workout this morning. I've made myself something that's going to be my cause for plus, so I'll save that. I'm going to go for a swim after this probably. I mean, I'm always in a good mood in the summer. It's summertime. It's here. It's happening. It's hot. I love it.
Yeah, nice.
What's your cause for applause?
Ooh, my cause for applause, and it's going to start negative, but turn around is last week I was trying a couple of new skincare products, and one of them caused a pretty serious reaction on my chin, and I've been having this like really dry skin all week, and then a couple nights ago I found some baby diaper rash cream that I had like shoved in the back of my bathroom stuff, and so I've been going to bed with this like little white goatee.
Is it like the Penitin, like the thick white, the thick white
Penitin cream?
Yeah.
Because I had went 4 days with it just getting worse and worse and flakier and flakier. But I used that a couple nights ago and then again last night, and I'm pretty much like I have like one little piece here that's still really dry, but overall my skin's coming back. And I've got a reminder for myself that like I know this sounds silly. I keep forgetting that I have sensitive skin. Like I get so excited about a new product. So in this case, and I'm not going to call out the brand specifically, I bought a sunscreen from an Australian company because come on, they've got to have sunscreen. It's Australia and Shoppers carries it now. And I was like, ooh, and it's a convenient little stick. It seems to be okay on my forehead and nose, but if I apply it to my cheeks, I get a really serious reaction. So
interesting.
Good to know that I won't be using it for that. Maybe I shouldn't use it at all, but I'm definitely going to try it again on the weekend, just on the T-zone. And if it continues to still work for that, then that's just what I'll use it for and not use it on the rest of my face. So yeah, my cause for applause, that is Penitin cream is still amazing.
Amazing.
It was a little silly. It was a little silly to like go to bed. Also, like, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but like I'm a big toss and churner. So like to actually like keep my face like up so I wasn't getting Penitin cream on my pillowcase was a bit of a challenge. But it was worth it because today I actually feel confident again. And it's so interesting how like something as little as having a big dry patch of skin on your chin can really impact, at least for me, can really impact my self-esteem. So because I was having a hard time a couple days ago, just with not wanting to go outside because what if someone sees this flaky skin and then I just got on that, negative self-talk train and rode it all the way to Georgia, just kept adding on all these other ways I'm deficient and just beat myself up a lot. And like now my skin's fine and my brain's being like, oh, you're fine, you're cute, like move on.
It's a lesson in resilience.
Totally. How about you? cause for applause.
Here's my cause for applause. I made protein pancakes today. Now you might
Ooh.
be saying, what the heck are protein pancakes, Victoria? This is an old recipe that I used to use. I kind of go through these phases where I like to create like healthy recipes or take a recipe and change it a little bit. And I haven't really been using any of my healthy recipes. So I go through phases where I'll eat something and then I'll forget about it. And I remembered my protein pancake recipe. And I made myself a batch of protein pancakes today. I'm going to tell you the ingredients. They're so easy to make. I'm going to tell you right now, everybody. 1 cup egg whites, 1 cup Greek yogurt or cottage cheese or skyr, 1 cup oats. And you put it in a blender and you blend it. It becomes like a thin batter. So it's like a gluten-free pancake, but it's full of protein. So like one pancake has 5 grams of protein. So if you have, it makes about 20 pancakes. If you have like 5 pancakes, that's 25 grams of protein, which is what you should be having in a meal, right? So I was pretty happy with myself for making my protein pancakes that I probably haven't made for myself in probably 5 years. So
Oh, wow.
now I've got and then I put them in the fridge and I keep them cold and I just snack on them.
Oh,
And
cool.
I added dried cranberries, a little bit of chocolate chips, and some sliced almonds to them. So like they're a good little
Ooh.
snack that I can pick up too. Because I've been trying to up my protein as a woman over 40. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And protein pancakes is such an easy way to do it. So I'm kind of going back through my old recipes of healthy recipes and rediscovering stuff that I haven't made in
Nice.
a really long time. So I've been having fun doing that.
That's
Yeah.
great. I saw a hack that was really popular like last week. And when you do this, do you like blend the cottage cheese
Yeah, I
or
put it I put all in a
all of it in a
blender. The
blender?
egg whites,
Okay.
the cottage cheese, and the oats. I put it in a
Hmm.
blender. I have a Vitamix, but I think any blender will really work.
Yeah.
And if you don't have, you can also do oat bran instead of oats, which will
Hmm.
bring the fat content slightly down, but I mean, whatever. You blend it in a blender, all 3 ingredients, and then it becomes a thing.
Yeah.
What was the hack that you saw?
The hack I saw was like I think a cup of cottage cheese and maybe an egg, maybe no egg. I don't remember now. But you blend just the cottage cheese and then you make it really, really, really thin on like a cookie sheet,
Hmm.
and then you bake it, I assume. And then you're left with like 2 wraps. So then you can
Oh, that
have
are
like a
made out of
keto
cottage
wrap.
cheese.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So people were, and some people were like, people were kind of trying it and like posting their results, and some people had really good results, and some people were like, ew, this didn't work.
Epic fail. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I think it all seemed to depend on whether or not they blended the cottage cheese before they tried to like spread it on
Is
the
this
cookie
is
sheet.
this like a TikTok hack?
Yeah,
I love these
absolutely.
TikTok things. Some of them are awesome, and
Totally.
some of them are like total fails, and you're like, that's not gonna work. And you're
Yeah.
like, how do they even video this, right? But you can find
Uh,
some good snippets on
Yeah.
there.
What one that I really like, and again, not that I eat it that often, but microwave popcorn before you actually open it when it's done, if you like shake it upside down before you open it, all the kernels come out of that little slot. Yeah, it's pretty
What?
cool. So, and again, not that we have like microwave popcorn that often, but when I saw it, I had to try and I was like blown away.
And it worked.
It totally works. You just don't open it. Like you put it upside down before opening it after it's been popped, and you just shake the bejesus of it over like
Smart.
another dish, and all the kernels come out of that tiny little hole.
See, some of the hacks are like, I gotta share this. I
Yeah.
What else have I learned? I've learned to sharpen my knives on the bottom of a mug.
Ooh, interesting.
So like, you know how there's like the round circle on the bottom of your mug that
Yeah.
is still like raw, like clay
Okay.
that didn't get fired and isn't shiny? That's basically the same as a sharpening stone.
Hmm.
And you just like drag your knife across the bottom of the mug, and that like circle on the bottom of your mug, if the mug hasn't been painted all the way around, like I have some
Mm.
old, like that
Mm-hmm.
circle on the bottom of your mug that's still kind of raw stoneware will
Interesting.
sharpen your knife.
And does it impact the mug?
No.
Like, no? Interesting.
I know. Because I'm
Yeah,
the
we
worst at
have
sharpening knives, and I'm like, oh, this is easy, and you just drag it across the bottom of your mug.
No, that's great. I'm very sad that I did not get to try the viral feta pasta hack
Oh,
that
that
like
one I did. I did that. I forgot about that. I do that one all the time.
Yeah, well, I
You
can't eat
roast the
tomato anymore.
tomatoes, roast the tomatoes,
Yeah.
you put the feta in, you roast the tomatoes and the feta
Yeah,
together
yeah.
and with garlic, and then you just add pasta and stir it.
Yeah, I've
Do it
seen
without
it.
tomatoes. Do it with red peppers.
Yeah, but that just seems pretty rich. I guess because there's not enough, like, I feel like the tomatoes give enough acid to counteract the feta. I feel like other veggies just don't quite do it. And also, like,
I do it with
yeah.
like I put tomatoes and peppers.
Okay.
You could do onions too. Obviously, I can't
Right.
because I'm allergic, but
Yeah.
you could just roast veggies with the feta and then mix it
That's
in.
probably a good, again, when I remember it was like maybe like 3 months after I had found out that I shouldn't eat tomatoes anymore that I saw this
Yeah.
hack and I was like, where was this hack
Honestly, it's so
before?
easy and so yummy. Just do garlic and feta then. It's so
Yeah.
good and so
Yeah,
easy.
yeah, yeah.
Honestly, so easy. I
Nice.
forgot about that one. I haven't done that one in a couple months and it was so
Yeah.
easy.
I've also seen a couple of other protein, like not pancake, but waffle options, but they seem kind of sad. Like it will be like, take 1 egg and take 1 spoon of peanut butter and mix them and put them in your waffle iron. And now you have like, I think they call it like a chaffle instead of a waffle.
I kind of agree with
Or
you. That one's
like,
kind of sad.
like,
This is why I like my protein pancake recipe because it makes a lot.
yeah.
And like if you're gonna try it at home, the batter will be thinner, so it's
Hmm.
gonna take a little longer to cook for the bubbles to start happening. So it's not gonna make a thick pancake. It's gonna make
Right.
it kind of halfway between a pancake and a crepe. So the batter is
Hmm.
thinner. If you like a thicker batter, put in more oats. Yeah, it's a huge batch and it makes a lot. It's still real food and it's not like 1 tablespoon of this and one thing of this. So
Hmm.
I think you're right. Like that one's kind of sad.
But
I
if it
agree
works
with
for
you.
people, like I've also seen people do that where they like just microwave an egg with a spoon of peanut butter and like they eat that. But that
No,
also doesn't
no,
look very
no.
appetizing.
I want food to
Um,
taste good. It
yeah,
shouldn't be like diet, like it should like
yeah,
I'm trying to up my protein, but this isn't like diet food. This is like
totally.
a way to make a healthier pancake that's
Yeah.
high in protein and fiber,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? High in those macronutrients, which is kind of my thing too. Like I'll never make diet
Mm-hmm.
food, but I'll like how have I ever talked to you about my healthy fudge recipe?
No.
Okay, I'll share the healthy fudge recipe too. And
Great.
then we'll put them up on the Instagram account, everybody. So the healthy fudge recipe is again so simple in a like a pot on low heat. You're going to melt half a cup of coconut oil, half a cup of peanut butter or nut butter or seed butter if you're
Mm-hmm.
allergic to half a cup of peanut butter, half a cup of cocoa powder,
Okay.
and you're going to make it liquid. And then you're going to add in a quarter of a cup or less of maple syrup.
Okay.
So like if you don't like it too sweet, you might put like 1 tablespoon of maple syrup in. If you
Mm-hmm.
so no more than a quarter of a cup. So basically the ratio is 1 to 1 to 1 to half. So
Okay.
half a cup coconut oil, half a cup peanut butter, half a cup cocoa, all the same. And
Mm-hmm.
then half of that is half or less of that is the maple syrup. And then you put it in a lined pan or Tupperware container. Line the Tupperware container with parchment paper if you can.
Mm-hmm.
You put it in the fridge and let it solidify in its fudge.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it's like sugar-free, milk-free fudge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's sugar in the maple syrup, but maple
Yeah,
syrup's a
yeah.
healthier sugar. It's like sugar-free, milk-free fudge
Mm-hmm.
with really good
Cool.
fats in it because coconut oil's got good fats in it for you.
Right.
Protein from the peanut butter. And then sometimes I add in like hemp seeds or like something chewy in it. So maybe some dried cranberries or maybe some
Mm.
sliced almonds or something. Like I do some add-ins, but it's
Yum.
so easy. You just melt it in a
Nice.
pot, put it in the fridge, done.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's not like a diet food. It's just like using different ingredients to
Mm.
come to the same or a similar outcome with healthier macronutrient type like things. We're focusing on the fats and the proteins and the
Mm.
fibers, right? Versus what is fudge? It's like evaporated milk or condensed milk and sugar and stuff. Yeah.
I have no idea. I've
And I
never tried
kid
to
you
make my own
not,
fudge.
I haven't made the healthy fudge in a while too, so that might be one of my goals for this week. I kid you
Mm.
not, every time I take that, I call it healthy fudge, but every time I take that healthy fudge, a potluck or a friend's house, they think it's real
Mm-hmm.
fudge. And then
Nice.
I'm like, this is good for you. There's no sugar in it.
Yeah.
People are like, what? It like blows people's
Right.
minds. Like the healthy fudge recipe is insane. And I kind of feel the same way about my protein pancakes. So that's my
Great.
cause for applause. Going back to like some old school I don't know what to call them. Like I call them like healthy recipe edits where I'm just changing ingredients, I guess. I don't know. You could
Hmm.
probably come up with a fun name for what it is that I do, but I'm just trying to like switch it up or pivot, I guess.
I
Like
think
recipe pivots.
the fun name is
Yeah.
cooking. You're cooking. Like I don't think there's any like, like that's the thing. Like I find it so funny. Like um there used to be this account I followed back in the day where like people would people would make recipes from the internet and then they would comment about like whether their recipe turned out or not, right? But they would like replace tons of it. It wasn't just like, oh, I changed the sugar for maple syrup. It would be like, I changed the this for this and the this for that and then this for this. And for some reason, it didn't turn out. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Because you're
yeah,
making
because
a
you didn't
different
follow the
recipe. Yeah.
recipe.
Yeah.
Like, don't get mad at the creator if you like, So I think, yeah, those swaps are good. And like, again, they all take trial and error and you find what works for you. And then you fall off and then you come back. And then you're like,
Yeah, that's
we
exactly it.
all
I'm
just need
kind
to
of
eat
coming
every
back
day.
into
Like,
I also think it's like you can only hold so much in your recipe or cooking or preparing food for yourself portfolio. So like some
mm,
ideas drop off,
totally.
right? So you go through phases where you're like, I'm eating a lot of quinoa or I'm eating a lot of this. And then you
Hmm.
like remember old recipes. Like you just reminded me of that pasta feta one, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and then you like bring another one. So I'm kind of bringing in these snack recipes that I used to do all the time that haven't really been in my eating portfolio or cooking
Mm,
portfolio for a couple of years. And
yeah, I like that.
I'm chuffed with myself.
I also saw a really great hack for people who struggle with meal planning. And I mean, I'm definitely one of those people. So, listen to my advice that I don't even follow myself. But this like busy mom posted that she keeps a mason jar with popsicle sticks, and every popsicle stick has like a meal that she knows her family likes. So on like Saturday before they do the big grocery shop, they pull 5 random
Oh,
sticks
that's
out of the
fun.
mason jar before they go and get their groceries. So then it also like helps it not become like Ben and I got into
A
not a no no
fight.
no 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 like a habit there for a while around like we were Taco Tuesday and then we were having it every single week for like months.
Yeah.
And then it was like one week I was not excited. I was like, don't get tacos. Like, and
Yeah,
then,
that's it. We kind of fall into
yeah,
the like, right? Because
yeah,
it's like we can only hold 6 or 7 recipes in our head or
totally.
ideas.
Yeah,
And then we have to like go back and take something out of the portfolio and
yeah.
put something else in. Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
with my ADHD, I get the ick sometimes where like, and I feel so bad. Like I looking back, I feel bad for my mom because I didn't know I had ADHD at the time. But like I would eat something like obsessively every day for like 2 weeks and then
Mm,
could not even stand the smell of it for like a month.
yeah.
So like that happens with me with yogurt and eggs. Like sometimes I'm in the middle of eating an egg and I just remember what an egg is and I it just falls out of my mouth and I'm like, "Oh, I can't eat eggs anymore." For like again, for months I won't be
I
able
do
to eat
that too,
eggs.
actually. Like,
And then I'll be craving it and then
yeah. And
yeah.
I'll be like, oh, this egg's giving me a headache. And then I won't eat eggs for a couple months. I go through phases like that with quinoa,
Okay.
eggs, and bananas.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do
yeah.
that
And like
too.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's like the best food ever. I could eat it every day for every
Yeah.
meal. And then all of a sudden, like the very next week, I'm like, oh no, please don't even eat that near me. I
What
need
did
to
you
go to
say
the
the
other
other one
room.
was for you? Eggs and what else?
Yogurt.
Oh,
Yogurt is
yeah,
so
me too.
interesting for me. Like yogurt,
Yeah.
I'll go through phase like, like Jamie Lee Curtis with the Activia, like eating the 2 yogurts a day. And then all of a sudden I'll just be like making it one day and be like, oh no. And then like I'm throwing out like again, privilege here, but like I'm throwing out an entire 12 pack of mini yogurts because I just can't bring myself to eat it. Um, but
Yeah. I'm with you on the
yeah.
yogurt. I'm really picky about yogurt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for it's
interesting.
just for me, it's just time. And I wish I could like control it better. I wish I could like, but yeah, it just happens. And it's like one of those things where like I didn't even know it was an ADHD thing until, now that we're all living on the internet, you see these clips. Like I saw this guy, he was talking to like he was like one of those things where he's playing both characters and it's like him and his neighbor. And his
Yeah.
neighbors ask him every night, "What are you having for dinner?" And he's like, "Chicken parmesan." And "What are you having for dinner?" "Chicken parmesan." Like, and it goes through like 8 of those, and then he's like, then his neighbor's like, "Oh, what are you having for dinner?" "Chicken parmesan." And he just like gags. And he's like, "Don't ever say chicken parmesan to me again." And then it's like 3 months later, "What are you having for dinner tonight?" "Chicken parmesan."
Can I ask, is it, curious question, does it have something to do with how the brain is processing like the rewards of that meal? And then you're like, do you just get sick of the reward? Because I know
That's
the
an interesting
ADHD
question. I
brain
don't,
is like uses food to fuel dopamine. Like sugar is
yeah,
a big thing for the ADHD
totally.
brain.
Yeah. I think
I
that could be part of it. I think there's also like um maybe some like ease to it too. Like you don't
mm,
want to cook again, so like you will just eat leftovers. But then because you get bored of it and then you just don't want to eat it
yeah.
anymore. And maybe that's everybody. Maybe it's not like specific to the ADHD brain, but I know that like it's something I have seen on ADHD
Well, I
content
was going to
and
say
agree
there's
with.
probably something about the brain and how it's processing something. I think a lot of people do that too, regardless if they have ADHD. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'd be curious. If you ever find out, let me know. I'd be curious. It's
Yeah,
something about like the reward center in the brain
it
or
definitely
the
could be that. Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and same, and and again, ADHD also likes to be a little rebel. So like I was just talking about how I can't really eat tomatoes anymore. But then we were coming back from our trip to Syracuse and I had a little bit of tomato on something, and then I was like, well, F it. And I had like marinara sauce after that. Then I had salsa in the afternoon because I
Mm,
was like, at that point, it was like, okay, well, like I'm just gonna have it. And it gave me so much dopamine to kind of like be rebellious. But then a couple
yeah.
days later, I had the inflammation. So, like, it wasn't worth it. But, like,
But we can
yeah,
trick ourselves in the moment to think it's worth it. And we
totally.
also, I feel like when it comes to food for sure, maybe not other things in life, if only we could be this way with other things in life, we think we're invincible. We want
Mm-hmm.
the thing's going to be delicious. We want to eat the delicious thing, even though we might know that we already know it doesn't make us feel good. Those of us that maybe have
Yeah.
allergies or have, let's say intolerances, not allergies, because
Yeah. But,
we want the thing. And
mm-hmm.
so in our mind, we're like, oh, this time it's not going to make me feel shitty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we think we're
Yeah.
invincible. And then we never are. Like, yeah, I think
Well,
food is so powerful. Why can't we do that with other things? Like, why can't we
yeah.
be like, I need to work out. I need to work
Right.
out. Or why
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
we be like, I'm going to do
Yeah.
the thing? Why can't we feel like we're invincible with other things
Mm-hmm.
that are like risks? Because eating that food is a risk to you, right? But like we
True.
think we're invincible, so we want to eat
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
God, why can't that translate to other things in life that are healthy for us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
Like,
think it's because again, it just feels good to be bad, right? Like it scratches that itch.
yeah.
I think yeah, maybe that's just my own programming or being that little bit of a contrarian seems to release dopamine in a way that maybe it shouldn't.
Well, I have a feeling
Um,
that people that are
yeah.
listening right now are nodding their heads, going, "Yeah, I do that too. I eat the chocolate. I eat the chocolate. I eat the right."
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And also bringing it full circle to my cause for applause, like again, like why, like I tried this new skin thing. I know to do a little test. I know to do the little test under
yeah,
your elbow because like that's how I've tested other stuff before. But I was like, nope, Australian sunscreen, here we go, whole face.
yeah. Like
And
we
like,
take it's interesting, or maybe it has something to do with we take risks on things that maybe don't feel that risky to us.
hmm,
I don't know.
yeah,
I gotta process this and think about it. But
yeah,
it's interesting,
yeah,
interesting stuff.
hmm,
Who's going first? I think we said me,
yeah,
right?
sure. But I
Okay.
mean, if you aren't feeling it, I can go, but it's up to you.
No, I can go. I'm feeling it.
Yay.
It's been so long since it's just been an episode with just you and I. We don't remember who
Hmm.
went first last time, everybody. So
Yeah.
we're starting again.
All right.
Okay. I have something that I would like to let go of in order to move forward. A behavior that it's not a specific moment that I regret, but it's a behavior that I've done in the past that I've been working on, but I still am working on it.
Hmm.
I guess is my preamble. So
Great.
the thing that I would like to let go of or release or move forward from is giving unsolicited advice. And it's interesting because this podcast has actually, as we created the formula from it, I mean, we didn't create it like these formulas of asking for feedback are part of a reflective listening and other things that exist out there in the world, has made me more aware of when I am giving unsolicited advice. And I think I'm getting better at it. It's also made me more aware of when people are giving me unsolicited advice. And it's actually, the interesting thing is, I've actually pulled away from a couple friendships because I realized all they're ever doing is giving me unsolicited advice that I don't need or want. And these weren't like deep friendships, but like, they were friendships, and I've really pulled away from them because I'm like, I don't want that. And then it's made me think about myself. I want to make sure that I'm not doing that either. And I know the topics that I give unsolicited advice on because I get very excited. I'm very excited about health and wellness. I'm very excited about human behavior. I think I give pretty good advice. There's my ego talking. I want to kind of explore this or let go of the giving unsolicited advice too much. So I want to make sure that I am nurturing my relationships, all of my relationships. And I do know that it's a habit that I've had in the past. I still think I have it, not as much as I had in the past, but I still think I have it. And I'm saying this out loud today to be aware, I guess, to be more aware. And it's okay. That's who I was in the past, right? Was giving that unsolicited advice. And maybe I was a more insecure person in the past and I needed to give the unsolicited advice more because it made me feel good about myself. And now, with all the work I've been doing on myself over the past 10 years since my burnout, I am becoming a more confident version of myself. I'm loving myself more. I'm loving myself more unconditionally and being kinder to myself. And that's also starting to translate into, I don't need to give the unsolicited advice because people aren't my friends because of the advice unless they ask for the advice. And so I'm kind of at this like pivot point around it, or turning point around it. But I would like to continue to be more aware about giving unsolicited advice or talking too long. And I know I've done it on this podcast because I edit the podcast and then I have to cut myself out sometimes because I talk too long with the advice, right? So also being parsimonious with advice, being more exact or efficient with my words too, with my advice. So there's kind of two things in there. And I mean, the consequence of holding on to that habit of giving unsolicited advice is that I may be pushing people away. The habit that we've learned here on the podcast of asking people if they want feedback or advice has actually become really important to me, to be able to have that habit and to be able to ask people. But then the key is, if they say no, is to not give the advice because you want to so badly, right? Is to be okay with whatever the answer is. So that's who I was in the past. This is who I am now, and that's okay. And that's my regret.
Thank you for sharing. Do you want feedback on this regret?
Yeah, give me a bit of feedback.
Great. I was actually prepared if you said no, because I actually just have a question at first. I think you've used this word a couple times today, and I've never heard it before. Parsimonious? Am I saying that?
Parsimonious.
Yeah. Okay, spell that for us.
So have you ever heard the word parse?
Yeah.
Like parse is the short form of parsimonious.
Okay.
Parsimonious means using less words to get your point across, using like the minimal amount of words to get your point across. So each word is like carefully chosen. So how can you get your point across in the least amount of words?
Right. Okay. Cool. That's a great word.
I'll tell you where it comes from.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the key things to being a really good rowing coxswain is your words are power. Like I say a word and the athletes respond. But if I am talking too much into the boat, because I have a microphone and there's speakers in the boat. If you're talking too much, you become the Charlie Brown teacher, the want, and then your words don't have power anymore. And so it's coaching that I received, and it's coaching that I give when I'm mentoring coxies, is how do you be parsimonious, and having like a kind of a magical word like that. It's like something that you can strive towards. Like your goal is to be parsimonious, and that's where I learned that word from, and that's where I use that word from, but I'm like moving it into my life too, right? Like, how can I use my words in their most powerful way to be succinct and powerful with your words so that you're
Mm.
heard and there isn't, this is what I say the opposite of parsimonious is verbal diarrhea.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny to me, and this happens in English all the time, that like the word itself is kind of cumbersome, but
Yeah.
it means to be less cumbersome.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I love it. Thank you. It kind of, I love learning a new word. So thank you for that. I guess too, I mean, we've talked about this topic a lot, the two of us. So I'm curious to get your feedback about feedback when it comes to people who struggle to ask for help, because some people really won't ask.
do, do you know what I found myself naturally doing this one,
Okay.
kind of on this journey about this is, can I ask you a curious question?
Mm-hmm.
And then I ask a question that might bring out something, and then I say, can I give you something
Right.
about that?
Yeah.
That's how I've kind of been learning how to approach it with people that do have that wall up as well,
Right.
instead of me just giving the unsolicited advice.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the curious question is like, how do you feel about this? And then, or maybe sometimes the follow up is, would you be open to me telling you,
Right.
would you be open to some advice or would you be open to feedback? But I kind of start it with, can I ask a curious question? And that curious question is pretty intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's about how do you feel or what do you need or whatever. And
Right.
then, yeah, but that's a good question too.
Yeah, because that for me seems to be the biggest hang up for me, that I still feel like, and again, feedback isn't the same as, like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about earlier today, I like our hallway is really narrow, and I saw someone coming towards me with like two big hands full of garbage. And there's also this little like divot in our hallway where the stairs are. So I instinctively moved into the divot so that this person would have room to get by.
Yeah.
And we had a quick little like, haha, like, what a tiny hallway, like kind
Yeah.
of thing. And I know that that's not feedback, but like in a way, I was kind of, I don't, this is maybe me overthinking things. Like I was kind of overcorrecting in a way.
The
Like, cause she,
awkwardness of
like,
it.
yeah, like I got into the little, like the alcove where the stairs are, but that person didn't necessarily need that. And in a way, it was almost criticizing them for having that much garbage. Like, oh, let me just get out of the
Oh,
way.
you were worried that they would be interpreted that way?
Or
See,
like
I
I'm
would
just
just interpret it as you being kind and moving out of the way.
right. But yeah, and I hope that that's how it was interpreted. But like when we get down this road of like, I don't want to give unsolicited feedback, I start
Mm.
like kind of reliving all of these moments and being like, oh, did I overstep? Like, or, like that's such a small example, but yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna do it right now. Can I ask you a
Yeah,
curious
sure.
question about it? That is it about awkward human interaction?
Um, no, I think like it's not just that it was awkward, it was that like in a way, it's hard to describe. Like it's okay, I have to add this other layer
Okay.
because I know that this is also happening, and I should bring you in on it.
Okay.
I saw a post a couple weeks ago where someone said they were at a seminar, and the person leading the seminar said, unsolicited feedback is criticism, always.
Mm.
And they did it like a sentence, like you'll say, like, oh, no is a sentence, like that. They didn't quantify it with anything else. And you could tell, and the person who posted it was so relieved to hear that. They were almost like clapping a little. And like the person posting it also commented that they could tell in the room that like half of the people in the room weren't happy to hear that, because to
Do you have
them,
to agree with that? That's an
oh,
opinion. That's
yeah,
that person's opinion that
yeah,
unsolicited advice is always criticism.
totally.
That's that person's opinion that was giving the seminar. So
Yeah.
do you agree with it?
I guess I feel like I would have, before doing this podcast, would have just maybe immediately disagreed, I
Okay.
would have been like, oh, but I'm just trying to help, or like the people need my advice. Like I would have just found all kinds of ways to disagree with that opinion. And through this podcast, I've actually started to be like, oh, wait, no, I think that that's more true than it isn't true.
So that's kind of my regret too, is I've actually noticed the people in my life that give me unsolicited advice.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever, parents are going to do it,
Yeah.
whatever. But like there's actually like one friend in particular that I've just completely distanced from because all I ever got was like unsolicited advice and I couldn't handle it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put a little caveat on it.
Okay.
To understand when you're giving unsolicited advice can feel like criticism to the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Not this unsolicited advice is criticism always, period. To keep in mind that unsolicited advice can feel like criticism to the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm learning, is to set up the unsolicited advice so that it then becomes permission to give the advice. And I think that's what we've
Mm-hmm.
been learning in this podcast. So I 75% agree with that statement that
Right.
unsolicited advice is criticism. Sometimes when we say it, when we make a really black and white statement like that, we forget the purpose of it. And I think the purpose of that person giving the seminar with that statement was to help people understand how human interaction works and how it makes people feel. So I would actually
Mm-hmm.
change again that statement to understand that when you're giving unsolicited advice, it can feel like criticism to the receiver. So how do
Mm-hmm.
you set it up or ask permission to do it so it becomes a worthwhile human interaction where you both grow from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of that like really harsh statement. Because
Right.
obviously you heard that really harsh statement and you've been thinking about it. It's been weighing on you and you've
Yeah.
been guilting yourself or pressuring yourself, right? In some
Yeah.
ways.
And I think that's why it was like such perfect timing that you brought this up as your regret, because to bring it back to literally this, I want to keep it focused on this one example with the woman carrying the
Mm-hmm.
two big bags of garbage and, me kind of acting a little bit erratically by, going into the alcove to give her the space so that she didn't have to, put the garbage all in one hand or churn sideways, like I then got into my head about like, was that in a way unsolicited feedback? Because I'm like, oh no, here you come with the
Or
garbage. I'm
was
going to
your
jump out of the
action
way.
unsolicited
Yeah,
feedback?
because like she could have, like, she probably in her mind already had the idea that if someone is going the other way in the hallway, I'll just adjust. But I almost like over adjusted and then kind of like laughed it off as they were coming by.
I think it's so interesting that your brain went to that she would interpret that as criticism because my brain automatically goes to, oh, thanks for moving out of the way to make it easier for me to carry these two huge bags
Hmm.
of garbage. Like my brain automatically goes to appreciation.
Yeah, and I think, see, and then that's what makes this interesting to me is that like I think the type of people who give unsolicited feedback think that that's what they're doing every time. I think
Think that,
they're doing the polite thing. They think that they are giving like
yeah,
that
they
person,
think they're helping.
they think they're helping.
Yeah.
So I think that's why like now every time I do something where I think I'm helping, I'm like, does this fall under the heading of unsolicited advice?
Yeah. I think it's like a valid question to ask. And again, I do think the things that we're doing here are helping us kind of wade through the weeds of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're learning skills as we go to do it, which we always have with the setup, but it's really turning into other parts of my life. So like I also find myself asking like, can I help you with, instead of can I give you unsolicited advice, can I tell you something that was helpful for me around this topic?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
they can say yes or no.
Right.
Or sometimes after I give the advice, I'm like, was that helpful or did I just like throw a,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
stick my foot in my mouth?
Yeah. It's
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, it's funny because like again, sa- today, same kind of thing happened where I was talking to our concierge about her weekend plans and she shared something with me and I really wanted to get in there with like, oh, this is how I would change that. And I just had to be like, I hope that goes better. Like, and I hope you have a relaxing weekend and I'll see you on Monday.
Yeah.
And it was so difficult to not
To
just
not
be
give the
like,
advice.
no, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to, like, and then like, so that happens. I get in the elevator. I come up the elevator thinking about, oh, look at me. I didn't give unsolicited advice. Then I see this woman with the garbage can or the garbage heading to the garbage cans. And so I think I've gotten myself all
Yeah, I
wrapped
think
up,
you've got
twist
yourself
turned,
kerfuffled.
like, yeah. So I think this was a really good regret that you shared because I think even though it's basically the theme of our podcast, other than the regret, like main part of it, yeah, I think it's good to keep checking in on this behavior that, like, funnily enough, I like your advice and I also like not having to ask for it, but also I think that's our relationship.
I think
So
yeah, I think that not you, I'm not pointing fingers at you. I
yeah,
mean, I'm
yeah, the
saying it,
royal you.
the royal you,
Yeah.
you figure out your relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can figure out like like with the deeper relationships, it can be easier to give unsolicited advice because it's almost safer to do it and to just
Mm-hmm.
check in on those every once in a while. Because most
Mm-hmm.
of the time when I check in on my deep relationships, like, yeah, no, I love your advice, but I just want to make sure I'm not overstepping. But it's more like with strangers and stuff too, or people that are
Mm-hmm.
acquaintances, like what you're saying, like the concierge at your
Yeah.
condo, right? Like it's interesting to start checking in on those things. And then it's also interesting to start to get a better grasp of human behavior and relationships. This is like, is this person reaching out to me because they want to trust me? Like, are
Mm.
they dipping their toe in the water here, or are they just having conversation? Or it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. It actually goes back to one of your regrets, I think, from season one was like oversharing.
Right.
You were talking about how you would overshare in like meetings and you felt like you were sucking the energy out of the room, but you didn't realize you were
Mm-hmm.
sucking the energy out of the room. And that's something you've really been working on.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of like my little demon about similar to that. And I think I'm doing okay at it. And I know I'm not perfect and I need to do more work at it. Learning to read people and learning to read the room. And I think a big one for a lot of people is people don't know how to read people or read the room when it does come to giving unsolicited advice because I think sometimes our egos take over, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to
Yeah.
make sure that I'm not that person too.
For sure.
Yeah.
I like that, like, because again, now that you've shared this, I've started thinking about the people in my life who have this habit. And it's not lost on me that these people are also the people I perceive as having the biggest problem with anxiety.
Oh, interesting.
And so, like, I think they view giving this advice as like a way to contribute. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna put a pin in that because it's very thorny to think about.
Yeah, let's revisit that
Mm-hmm.
in another episode, but I get what
Yeah.
you're saying too. And I am a person that lives with anxiety,
Yeah.
and I'm a person that has less anxiety now than I did 10 years ago. Have
Mm-hmm.
really worked on myself. And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe there is a connection to anxiety there.
Yeah, potentially.
The verbal diarrhea, unsolicited
Mm-hmm.
advice, and then how
Mm-hmm.
do we be more parsimonious with our advice or be parsimonious in those interactions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is again what I've been learning on this journey that I'm like 10 years into now, and I'm really proud of myself, and I'm kinder to myself, and I feel more light and free, and I'm more self-aware and more aware of the people that I'm around and the people I want to be around. And I'm a totally different person than I was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And I'm a totally different person than I was before we started this podcast, too.
Mm-hmm. Same.
It's funny, we've changed our opening for the podcast. Those of you out there that have been listening since day one, the original opening was we decided to do an experiment, right? And
Mm-hmm.
now the opening is more just like we've made the opening more parsimonious too. We're like, we're going to share our regrets to help
Yeah.
you let go,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the original intent of the podcast really was what would happen if we did this and how would it trickle out into our everyday lives? And now we're having these discussions where we're going, this is trickling out into my everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
I am asking people if they want feedback. I am more aware of when I start to give that unsolicited advice or talk too much. Literally, this podcast is changing my life.
Mm-hmm.
And our hope is that it changes our listeners' lives
Mm-hmm.
through
Absolutely.
osmosis, right? Or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the people that come on that are guests, and that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
The
I agree.
experiment is working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Did you want to share anything else about your regret?
No, that's it. I think
That's
I've
it.
talked enough.
No, no, more, 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 more. Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
listening and like kind of hashing that one out with me. Actually, that was more of like a hash out, which is
Mm-hmm.
good. Just like
Mm-hmm.
processing it with me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, great.
Do you want to share yours?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Okay.
ready.
So this will be a much shorter one today because I have stopped this, but I do still feel the pangs of regret when I think about it. So I regret trying to play matchmaker with my friends. And I don't mean like romantically. Like I mean I've done that and like of course that's a different regret. I mean like friend matchups because I used to always hear this thing where like it's so hard to make friends as an adult. And I found that fascinating because I find it very easy to make friends as an adult, easier than when I was a kid. So I started doing this weird thing where I would try to like force different friends together. And then I would hear back that like they don't like each other. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, I like both of you. Of course, you're going to like each other. But like, something it just never really worked out, this like friend matchmaker thing that I've been trying to do. So I have stopped doing that, but like I find the regret now and like the consequences of holding on to this idea is that like sometimes even when I think the connection could be amazing, I'm now holding back because I've had these experiences with friends that like I've tried to match them up and they were not a match. And so now I don't even try. Where like I feel like what I should be doing is just maybe evaluating it longer or finding a way for all three of us to hang out and seeing if they naturally connect as opposed to trying to force it. And like I get why I did it. Like I said, I did it because I would hear this common refrain that it's so hard to make friends as an adult. And I thought I had the fix, similar to the unsolicited advice. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to throw those two people together. And it doesn't work. It hasn't worked, but maybe it could work in the future. That's pretty much it. Like I said, it's a short one. It's this weird thing I've noticed that I do to people, and I've stopped it already, but now I feel like there's a little bit of a consequence in that maybe there could be another magical connection that I could be the conduit for, and I'm not making those connections because I fear people getting upset with me over it. So that's it for today.
Do you want feedback?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Couple things.
Yeah.
Control.
Okay.
My guess is it would be better to have a party or do something together and because then they're in control. You're not in control,
Hmm. That would be
right?
better,
Like they're
probably.
in
Yeah.
control of trying to decide if they like this other person, then somebody saying, "Oh, you would
Hmm.
get along with them really well. Here's their contact information or whatever."
Yeah.
So control's one of the things because the brain always wants to be in control, especially when we're meeting new people and it's uncomfortable and whatever. So there's a control thing. So you think you're being of service, but really you're taking the control away from them.
Hmm.
Does that make sense, kind of?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You already kind of said what I was going to say for feedback too, is like, how can you make it lighter and freer and more joyful?
Mm.
Gonna call a bunch of my friends and we're gonna, I'm gonna invite some different friends and see if these friends jive with these friends and
Yeah.
we'll go have a couple glass of wine together or whatever. I'm having a party at my house and see if people vibe or whatever instead of
Hmm.
actually trying to like set them up. But you're not the only person that does this. I think other people do this too, like
Oh, yeah.
the friends setup, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it ultimately comes down to like people have to be open to it, but it also comes down to control. And then sometimes people might feel guilty if they don't like the person or those sorts of things
Hmm.
too. So I think the easier way to do it is like have a party, or you already said it, like I'd have two friends that I think would like each other. Maybe I'll ask both of them to go out for a cup of coffee with me and
Hmm.
hang out and see what it's like,
Yeah,
right?
for
Make it
sure.
lighter and freer.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think the other thing that I have to kind of like put myself here in is that of course we like people that we have similar interests with, but we don't, I find that this has happened my whole life. We don't like people who are too similar to us. and maybe that's just my own stuff, but like what I think is happening is that if you think about a magnet and the two different poles, and then like, okay, I match with this person. And then I find that same match over in this other person. But then when you try to put those two ends of the magnet together,
Yeah.
they detract from each other. And I think that's what's happening is that I'm seeing these patterns between these two people. And even though I'm totally different than those people, I'm like, oh, they're so similar. I should make them friends. And then they don't mesh because they're too similar. So I
Yeah,
think
you
that
don't know what the
happens.
chemistry is, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like a magic sweet spot or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or some friendships are a slow burn or something, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just yeah.
And
But
actually,
I get the thing about especially in big cities. When I first moved
mm-hmm.
to Toronto, I was like, how do I make friends? It's so hard. And you
Right.
moved from a small town like too,
Yeah.
right? So there's probably a place in your heart that's like, I want to make it easier for people because I understand what it's like, how hard it is
Yeah.
to make friends in a big city. Sometimes we have to let go of control too. We
Mm-hmm.
can't help everyone, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
the best thing you can do when someone says that is like, I know it's so hard and it sucks.
See, for me,
You
it was
know?
not hard in Toronto. It was hard as
Oh,
a
really? I
kid,
found it
but
really
here in the
hard.
city, I find like I walk out my door and I make five new friends, you know, like
Yeah.
it's not difficult for me. So I think that was it too, was that again, it comes down to the control because it's like,
Mm.
oh, I have this skill that you don't have. Let me
Control it for you.
control it for
Yeah.
you because then you'll stop complaining, which is not nice. It's not a nice way of approaching it.
No, but like it's
But
okay if that's what you were
yeah,
subconsciously thinking. You're like, well, then
yeah.
I can help make you happier, or then our
Hmm.
relationship will be better because you won't be complaining to me about it or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that happens on like a lot of topics in friendships.
Hmm.
Which goes kind of ties into mine is like, let me give you some unsolicited advice here because
Yeah,
I want you to change. I don't want you to just be sitting here coasting in this thing you're complaining about. So let me
yeah,
help you, right? But
totally.
people have to want to change and they have to want help. They
Hmm.
have to be
Hmm.
open to it. And sometimes we
Yeah.
have to, you know, put it in there with little things like, can I ask you a curious question? Or things like we have
Hmm.
to lead people in different ways, or we have to love people for exactly who they are.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and those are hard lessons to learn because I
Yeah,
think that when, again, unsolicited advice or trying to set people up with friends, it's all coming from a good place. You want what's
yeah.
good for that person, but
Hmm.
they have to want it too.
Totally.
Yeah,
And it doesn't feel good to have something forced upon you, right? Like
yeah.
I'm thinking about like in my 20s, I was actually the recipient of this same kind of interference where a friend of mine had their best friend and they wanted, you know, to introduce me to their best friend and we became very quick friends. But we also had a pretty bad friend breakup. And
Oh,
now
you with
I'm
the original friend or the new
the
friend?
new friend.
Interesting.
And after a couple years too, it wasn't immediate. Like we had, like
Hmm.
we were definitely all three of us really good friends for a long time. And then I couldn't be friends with the third person really anymore. And it has impacted my friendship with the first person.
Yeah.
So that makes me sad. But also like, again, maybe it's because it was forced or I'm not sure or whatever else. But yeah, like that's
I
interesting to
think
me.
that's a whole other can of worms. Sorry,
Hmm.
what were you gonna say?
Oh, and then I was going to actually just pivot to something positive, which I just went to a celebration of life last weekend. And at that celebration of life was one of my cousins on my mom's side. And she introduced me to her hairdresser. And funnily enough, I know for a fact that her hairdresser is also the hairdresser of a cousin on my dad's side.
Oh, interesting.
And and so I have actually done this like positively once where I was like, hey, cousin this, hey, cousin that. You guys should be friends. You both live in the same small town. You both have these things going on, and you both have the same hairdresser. Like, and then when I like met the hairdresser at the celebration of life, there was this instant weirdness, like kind of
Oh,
that magnet thing, like that like opposing magnet energy as soon as I like met this person. But maybe I was reading too much into it or whatever else. But it made me like kind of chuckle to myself because like because this is something that's been top of mind lately about like not trying to force friendships. I don't need to be friends with the hairstylist. It's just a fun
Yeah.
coincidence that a cousin from my mom's side and a cousin from my dad's side go to the same hairstylist in this small town. And I guess they've both have talked about me, and I have such a unique name that if someone
Hmm.
says my cousin Shadoe, blah, 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 it's going to trigger something when another client says my cousin Shadoe, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
because it's just such a unique name that it's gonna, anyway. So yeah, so that's now I'm just talking to talk.
Okay,
So
so maybe I was gonna say another kind of piece is you don't have to follow through on everything.
mm-hmm.
So the idea of forcing it, maybe it's just an introduction and then you leave it up to them.
Right. Yeah.
Like you don't have to follow through. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
just gonna have a cup of tea with two of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys be opening to both having a cup of tea with me at the same time? Because I don't have a lot of time and I want to see you both, and I think we would jive,
Mm-hmm.
and then whatever. And then, let things be a slow simmer, or let things be the one time they had a cup of tea together, right? Like you don't have
Yeah.
to follow through on things. And
Well, that's just
sometimes we
music to
have to
the
let people find their own way as well,
mm-hmm.
which is a hard one.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sometimes that's hard to do too, right?
Yeah.
Is let people make find their own way through, and then support them when they need support in making those friendships. But we've talked about this too. Not all connections need to be deep, and like it's just
Mm-hmm.
important to have human connection. We don't
Yeah.
have to force deep connection either.
I didn't mean to cut you off earlier, but what I was going to say is the words you don't have to follow through is just music to the ADHD brain.
Oh, good. There you go, right?
Because
Like you
it's
don't have to follow through. Yeah.
it's the biggest thing we shame ourselves for, I think, is that like we have all these brilliant bubbling ideas that go nowhere because by the time you're working on the plan for that idea, 10 new ideas have sprouted up, which isn't that effective, and it does impact my life very negatively. That's why I was like got really eager to kind of like be like, "Ah, I don't have to follow through." I knew like so
One of the things that
yeah.
I've kind of like learned on the journey of like being kinder to myself too
Mm,
is kind of like admitting when something's not working,
right.
and then you don't have to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes there's this thing where like I have to finish this project, I have to do
Right.
this thing, but you're miserable doing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You don't have to finish it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that's a relief too, because I've seen things too around people being like let's say they start their own small business and then 2 or 3 years later they want to close up shop. And then they start telling themselves this idea that they failed,
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's
as
not
opposed to
failure,
like you
it's
tried
change.
and you didn't, it wasn't what you thought it would be, and that's okay too. But like we
It's
definitely,
evolution.
yeah.
It's evolution. It's change. It wasn't what you thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Admit that, accept
Yeah.
it, because you're going to be happier when you search out what you actually want.
Yeah.
I think I've used this example before, but this kind of thing drives me crazy. I think I told you when I was in university, I started out as an English major, and then
Hmm.
halfway through, I switched to like a health promotion major, like total 180. So I went from the
Wow.
English department to the kinesiology and phys ed department. This is a trend that I see too is, well, I started this major, I'm already a year in and I'm miserable, but I'm going to
Mm.
finish my university degree and then do another one. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I wasted all that money on that first year. So I might as well spend another 3 years being miserable and finishing the English major.
Right.
No, you're wasting money on the next 3 years then. Like, and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't waste money on the first year. You learned life skills. You learned what you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
You learned, you probably learned what you do like. You probably learned study skills. But I cannot tell you how many people I've had that conversation with that are in college or university that are miserable with their major, but don't want
Mm-hmm.
to waste the year that they've already put into it by switching their major or changing.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is your life. You can stop things. You don't have to follow through on everything. Here's the amazing thing. Let's bring it back to control, full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, you're in control, and part of being in control is making the right decisions for yourself.
That's really beautiful. I'm having resistance to it, but
Okay, good. Tell me about the
yeah,
resistance. Tell me, tell me, tell
the
me.
resistance is that there has been times in my life though too where like I've wanted to quit something when it got hard, but then by sticking with it, I did enjoy it by the end. So it's how do you make that choice? Like where like is it a pro cons list? Is it a feeling? Is it like how do you decide you're so miserable you can't continue? And how do
Yeah.
you decide I'm miserable right now, but I do see a benefit at the end of this? Or
I think you just answered it.
yeah.
If the answer is, I'm so miserable, I can't do this,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And if
Mm-hmm.
the answer is, I know that there's going to be a benefit in the long run and I can do this to get to the next step. I know what the next step is, and I know that I need to
Mm-hmm.
do this to get to the next step
Yeah.
because it's what I really want. You just answered your question
Right.
yourself.
Right.
And I think that it takes guts, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think it takes moments of self-reflection and self-awareness and really talking to yourself. What is it that I
Mm-hmm.
want? Why am I miserable? Why am I so edgy? Why am I angry? What is it? Oh, it's because
Mm-hmm.
I actually hate this, the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah. Versus I just really need a break. I've been working too hard on this thing and that's
Yeah.
why I'm miserable versus yeah. Yeah, it's
It's
just
about
such a
checking in with
interesting
yourself
yeah,
and
yeah.
developing that relationship with yourself and that self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
or bouncing it off other people. Because I will say, one of the reasons why I changed, so as an English major, I was on the rowing team at university, and I'm really into learning about the nutrition and the fitness and the whatever on the rowing teams, like elite level competition, right? And I'm just like, I cannot read another 100 pages of Chaucer or Shakespeare. Like I cannot read another
Mm-hmm.
like I was reading like 1,000 pages a week of like
Right.
old English, right? And my dad called me one day and he's like, you know, your mom and I were having a conversation today. I'm like, okay, dad. And he's like, what are you doing? I
Hmm.
was like, what do you mean? He's like, we think you should switch your major. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, we think you'd be happier doing phys ed and doing
Mm.
health. And I
Interesting.
hadn't even thought of it,
Right.
even though on top of all of the university course I was taking, I was doing about 40 hours a week rowing and focusing on the fitness of my athletes, the fitness of myself, the nutrition. He's
Mm.
like, you're already doing it. So
Right.
why don't you study it?
Mm.
And I was like,
Amazing.
oh my God, Dad, you're so right. What am I
Right.
doing? That helped me. But then I had to reflect and ultimately make the decision myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I also needed an outside person to say it to me. And like sometimes we're so inside ourselves, that's where maybe a little bit of unsolicited
I
advice
was
can
just gonna
help.
ask, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. But it came from a person that, like, I trusted. It was my dad. He was like, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other times in my life too, like Christian, right before my burnout was like, what are you doing, man? Like, you're
Right.
burning out. You're complaining about the job so much. You used to love the job so much. So what's the change
Mm-hmm.
that needs to happen? Well, then I didn't get to choose the change. It was chosen for me because I had my burnout.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the moments where we need to be open to hearing when it's when it's our person. Like Christian's my person,
Yeah.
and when I was in university, my parents were my people, right? Like
Right, right, right.
that may be a little bit different type of unsolicited advice, but because your first resistance is no, 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 I got to follow this through. I'm doing it. But if somebody
Mm-hmm.
that really loves me and cares about me is worried about it and is saying, you should think about this,
Right.
then I should think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
then I get to choose and still be in control, right? But I should think about
Mm-hmm.
it. And maybe there's a little voice inside your head. Maybe your subconscious brain is saying you should think about it and you're resisting it because you think you have to follow through. And if you're feeling that thought, think about it
Mm-hmm.
and then make a decision either way. And
Yeah.
that's self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I love
Yeah.
self-awareness. The more
Yeah.
self-aware I get, self-awareness is like the matrix. You take the blue pill or the red pill. Once
Right.
self-awareness is the red pill, and once you take the red pill, you can't go back, but trust your relationship with yourself just keeps getting better and better and
Mm.
better. You still feel resistance, that's okay. You can say
No,
you
no,
still
no.
feel
I
resistance. It's fine.
actually I wanted to share that this is so funny that we've known each other for 4 years at this point. I didn't know you changed your major in undergrad.
Yeah.
I did too.
Oh yeah? What
Yeah.
did you start as?
I started as a world studies major. That was a program they offered at Trent that was
Was it like
interdisciplinary.
political or
No. It was world, and you had to take like yes, you had to take a politics course, but then you also had to take like history courses of like different countries, and you had to take a language component as well.
oh, interesting.
And I cannot, and I have tried over and over, I cannot learn another language. I want it so
Me
badly,
too.
and I was in Spanish, and I flunked Spanish class first year,
And were
like
you
big
miserable?
time. And well, I was actually like, I was desperate to like stay in it because I want like
Mm.
when I was a kid, like my biggest dream was to become like a diplomat and like go to country to country to country representing Canada. Like that was something I really wanted. And I saw world studies as a way to get there. And when I flunked out of Spanish, like, oh, I was so upset about it. And I tried to find all these different exemptions to be like, I just want to stay in world studies. And there was someone else who like the academic advisor looked at the courses I had already taken and some of the courses I was interested in, and we shifted it to a double major in politics and history. And then the next year we made it a single major in politics because that was where it was like that's where I was getting not just the best marks, but like I really
Passion.
yeah, passion. Like I wanted to go, like I wanted to go to class. It wasn't this like I have to force myself to go to class.
Yeah.
Like
And
my
that's what,
yeah.
in my opinion, that's what post-secondary education should feel like.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
should be doing something that you're like so excited to learn about and you're
Yeah.
curious and it's fascinating to you and
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
pulls out your passion
Yeah.
and right, like you're setting yourself up for success in life.
Yeah. I remember too, like almost kind of similar to what you were talking about. Like I was already doing politics. I was in every student club. I was running for like student elections. Like I loved it. I like
Yeah.
thrived on that. And as I took more politics classes, like I loved it. I also found that in my history classes, when I was writing the papers, I had to like come up with a lot of fluff to like meet the page minimums.
Mhm.
Where in my politics classes, I was always having to take out
Yeah.
because I would write and write and write and write, and then I'd be over the maximum. And
Very
that
cool.
also gave me like the hint that like, oh, this is what is important to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've changed since, like I don't do politics now. Sometimes I regret it. Sometimes I'm very happy that I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You're
like
allowed to change too
totally.
later in life,
Yeah.
right?
But yeah, so I
I'm
definitely
just lucky
saw,
enough that I'm actually using my degree, but I know
yeah.
tons of people that like
Hmm.
my sister has a drama degree
Nice.
and she's a music teacher.
Right.
She's not a drama teacher.
Hmm.
She's a vocal singing teacher
That's
because
cool.
all through university, all through high school, all through our whole lives, my sister and I both took private singing lessons, we're in choirs, whatever,
Hmm.
right? She probably should have majored in singing at university.
Right.
I mean, she loved drama too, but now she's like this incredible music teacher in Australia and she conducts this choir, school choir that wins awards and she loves it and she's
Hmm.
passionate about it, right? I'm not sure she'd be
Hmm.
as happy if she was teaching drama.
Right.
So she
Right.
changed.
Yeah. And I think that
But
that experience really colors my idea of like when you quit something, you're a failure because like I was forced to change my major due to flunking one of the requirements as opposed to like making like it was still an active choice afterwards. But I think I still hold some like, again, like just mean, not nice things in my internal
yeah, well,
monologue.
I think it's interesting because we're taught that a lot when you quit something, you're a failure, like as kids. And I think it's
Hmm.
important to follow through as kids. It's about building resiliency. But as an adult, how do I put this? I think it's brave to quit things when you know it's not right for you.
Hmm.
Like, I think it's brave to say, this isn't right for me right now.
Right.
Because we have that pressure so much that we're afraid people are going to think we're a failure or we flip flop on things or we're a flake or we're wishy washy,
Hmm.
right? But if people didn't change their mind in adulthood, what if every single politician in the world
Hmm.
still believed, like back in the 80s when politicians were saying climate change isn't real? What if
Hmm.
every single politician hadn't changed their mind?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, because that was the thing in the 80s. It was like climate
Hmm.
change isn't real. We actually think the world just goes in cycles and it'll be fine, right?
Yeah,
You're allowed to change your mind if you're given
totally.
information that makes more sense to you. What if people that are believing the fake news decided to change their mind, because there's plenty of people that have said, I was reading the fake news and I realized that that wasn't right for me and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't believe that anymore. You're allowed to change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
not failure.
No.
That's growth. That's self-awareness. That's bravery. It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
I was gonna say quitting is winning, but that's it's too easy to say quitting is
Yeah,
winning.
fair enough.
But
Yeah.
like, because
Yeah.
you're right, like finding, and again, not everything's black and white. Some things I need to follow through on. Some things I
Mm-hmm.
need to say, this just isn't my jam anymore. This isn't
Yeah.
right for me anymore. And that's
Yeah.
cool too, and that's not failure. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
brave. I think that's courage.
I would say I agree with one caveat, of course, because I'm
Okay,
very resistant today.
great. I love it when you're resistant.
I worry that like sometimes change isn't good. Like, what about the people who like maybe go the opposite way? They start watching the fake news and they're like, oh, finally, I'm really hearing the truth. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
not all change is necessarily going in the right direction, but then I have to give up control
Hmm.
over other people's change,
Yep.
right? And that's
Yep.
really tough for me. Like, that's something I am still struggling with.
You just said exactly what the feedback was that I was going to give you. You have to
Hmm.
give up control over other people's change.
But it's also within me too, because then it's like, well, if that's true, then how do I know that the changes I'm making are net positive?
You have to trust yourself.
Ugh, gross.
Or maybe you start with, instead of I have to trust myself, I have to be kind to myself and listen to myself.
Hmm. Yeah.
I
For
have to do
me,
what I want.
yeah. Yeah. For me, the
And
bottom
I have
line
to
is,
listen to
yeah.
myself to know what I want. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, 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 it's okay. For me, the bottom line is always like, does this harm another person? That seems to be my biggest like question when I'm thinking about like if I'm going to make this change, who does it hurt?
Can you
Um,
ask if it's going to hurt yourself?
no, that doesn't matter.
Yes, you can.
No, no, no. I know.
Yeah,
I'm just
I know.
I that was like
Yeah, I know.
10%
I know. I
joking.
know. But can, like, maybe the first question, and
Yeah.
instead of the last question,
Hmm.
should be, does this harm myself? And like, harming yourself can be many things. It can be being miserable, it can be being
Hmm.
unhappy, it can be not looking after yourself physically, it can be spending your energy too much on other people. Like, there's so many ways we can not be kind to ourselves or
Hmm.
harm ourselves. But that should be the first question. And here's what I'm going to say, because I think I know what your brain is thinking right now. I think, but that's selfish. It's not selfish.
Mm-hmm.
That's not selfish. It's not selfish to ask yourself that question first.
Yeah.
Again, the only thing we can control is ourselves.
Hmm.
And if we can come to a place of feeling centered and grounded and loving and kind to ourselves, then we can start to express that to the rest of the world.
Hmm.
But if we're not expressing that to ourselves, no matter how much we think we're expressing that to the rest of the world, we're not fooling the rest of the world. They can see that we're not
Hmm.
expressing that.
Hmm.
So we have to do it to ourselves first.
And again, I think this even comes back to that idea we were talking about where like the people who do give the most unsolicited advice seem to be people who have anxiety. And I
Yeah.
think that that's why it's because they don't trust themselves, but they know that being nice to people is nice. And then they can trust that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's a trap I've put myself in many times over.
It's relying on outside validation. And we need outside validation too, but we need inside validation first.
Yeah, but
Happiness
like,
is an inside job,
yeah, yeah.
right?
It's not even the outside validation. It's just the idea that like if I'm nice to people, then I'm a good person.
Yeah, I'm a good person
And
because people
even,
like me because I'm nice to
hmm
them.
hmm exactly.
Yeah.
Well, wow. I thought this was going to be such a short little
Yeah, this went
share,
somewhere
but
totally different. This is good.
but it's
This
good.
was
I
good
think
and
this was
deep.
a
And
really good episode with just the two of us.
yeah, I really thank you.
Thank
I always
you.
thank you for being vulnerable with me and letting me like try to pull things out of you, and you also pull
Hmm
things out of me. So
hmm
I want to thank you for that. Thank you for accepting my feedback
Yeah,
today
yeah,
and
yeah.
for letting me give you feedback. Yeah, this was great.
Oh my gosh, when
I
you just
appreciate
said
you so
that,
much.
I appreciate you so much, but I have to make a joke. When you just said that, like the pulling things out. Do you remember? I don't even know which one it was, but one of the Austin Powers movies. had like this whole scene where there was like shadow play happening and the person was like unpacking
Oh yeah,
their
yeah,
things, but
yeah,
it
yeah.
looked like they were
Behind the
pulling it.
screen,
So
behind the
that's, yeah,
screen.
behind the
Yeah.
tent. Yeah, the canvas tent. Yeah, like as soon as you said we're pulling things out of each other, my mind immediately went there as opposed to like accepting the compliment. So I
Yeah.
just had to share that. I haven't
Accept the
seen the movie in
compliment.
like 20 years, but still. My brain was like, make a joke. Where's the joke? Here's the funniest thing.
Awkward, 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 awkward. Heal the awkwardness with comedy.
Yeah,
Blocking, blocking,
obviously.
blocking. All right. Well, thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you,
Thank
Shadoe. I
you.
appreciate you so much. Shall we do our 3 breaths?
Yes, please. Let's.
All right, everybody. Come on to the front edge of your seat if it's safe for you to do so. Please put your feet flat on the floor so you feel grounded, connected to the earth. Just press your feet into the floor if you can. And just acknowledge that that is gravity holding you to the earth. The earth wants you to be here, and you are supported and worthy just by being a human being. On the face of this planet, gravity will never let you fly away. So take a big breath in, exhale, and sink down into the palm of the earth's hand, feeling grounded and connected. And if you want, you can place your hand on your heart as we do our 3 breaths of self-awareness, self-compassion, and calling in abundance. On this first breath, as you breathe in with a long exhale out, I know forgiveness may be challenging, but it can also be liberating. I'm calling in the humility to allow it to enter my life and experience how it transforms me. And on this next breath in, as you exhale a long exhale, my body holds immense wisdom. It can guide me towards healing and wellness. I'm calling in the ability to listen to my body and learn from it. And on this next exhale in, with a long exhale out, I'm choosing to believe that I am magnificent. I'm calling in an abundance of joy, connection, strength, and love within me and around me. Thank you so much for joining us out there. And we appreciate you so much for listening to us. We appreciate you so much for supporting us. Tell a friend, continue to support us. We appreciate you so much. And we will see you, hear you, be with you, feel with you in the next one. Thank you, everybody. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
I'm keeping that in. That was Olivia the cat. That's staying in. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. This episode of Let's Relieve Regret was produced by Shadoe and Victoria Muir-Bercia.
Editing by me, Victoria Muir-Bercia.
We are an independent podcast supported by you, our listeners.
If you think this podcast sends a valuable message, you had an aha moment, or learned something new about yourself, help us realize our goal of reaching as many listeners as possible.
We encourage you to take action and support us right now by choosing one of the following options.
You can easily support us by
following us on Instagram at relieve.regret.
Tell 2 friends.
Leave a 5-star review on whatever app you're listening to us on.
Leave a tip at coffee.com/Let's Relieve Regret podcast. That's ko-fi.com/Let's Relieve Regret podcast.
Join our conversations in the Facebook group, Let's Relieve Regret Podcast.
Find all this information, all the links, and more in the podcast notes. Okay, bye.
Bye.